We recently visited Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. Vietnam is famous as a hub of fabrics and tailoring, but you can also find other items wholesale here. This is our favourite market in HCMC, called Tan Dinh Market. Sorry, I'm butchering that because I haven't got a handle on the tonal element of Vietnamese yet. Tan Dinh Market is located near a famous pink church, as well as the omnipresent Vietnamese motorcycle. Seriously, look at how pink that church is. That is ridiculous. And I am here for it. Once inside the market building itself, you can find a myriad of knickknacks of varying degrees of completion. Here we're walking through a selection of ready-made items. Ooh, lace. You can see the quantity and variety on offer here. This is a quiet part of the market, and if you visit a Vietnamese market, you should be prepared for it to be quite an overwhelming experience with vendors approaching you. In amongst the piles, I found what I was looking for. On one of our visits, I bought some cotton lace, which we got tailored into a dress. I'll talk about that in another video, because this time it's all about hand-sewn skirts. Specifically that one, which I love so much it's come abroad with me. Now this skirt is from Anthropologie, which if you don't know is an American store with a boho vibe. Within the past few years they opened up shops in the UK too, though I got this skirt from Vinted because they're expensive at RRP. Having said that, it is cut really flatteringly, made from a nice floaty cotton, and it's just generally pretty well thought out. It's got a pocket on each side, an invisible zipper of questionable integrity, some really comprehensive ruching, and an underskirt finish with this really cute hem. So what I did after eyeballing the quantity of fabric I needed was measure the length of the skirt, the height of the pocket, the distance of the pocket from the top of the skirt, and for good measure, from the bottom. I also measured the hem width in inches, then realised I'd done everything else in centimetres, so turned off the measuring tape. Finally, I had my plan. Because the last time I successfully sewn something was in 2013, and it wasn't that successful because it frayed horrifically, I then spent a fair amount of time procrastinating by examining how my skirt had been made. There's 1 inch of elastic trapped in the waistband, quite a thick folded hem at the base, possibly as a defence mechanism against rogue gusts of wind, not really any edges at risk of fraying, apart from this one, my least favourite, though the skirt's lasted years and years so it can't be that bad. I'm hand sewing though and just didn't want to risk it. Yes, really, hand sewing. I have no current access to a sewing machine and to be honest they scare me. The ruching is quite simple but done consistently after I think ironing the fabric first. The back of the zipper has seen better days. I like that it's made from a different material, a really thoughtful and complimentary touch, but don't like that the zipper has broken multiple times. It's a definite weak point of the skirt. It started happening pretty early on, but no, I haven't bothered to mend it. Look at that, honestly. Woo! Did you guess this is the fabric I went for? It's got a butter paisley design. The thing that swung me was the differing design at the bottom. I could picture the end product immediately. The only downside is it's a bit thin. I spent about 130,000 Vietnamese dong on 2 meters, £4 or $5 US. Additionally, I purchased this thread, which is polyester when I was looking for cotton, but I don't speak Vietnamese, so hey ho, hopefully I've got enough. As well as some needles, which I didn't really need but felt better having. And this invisible zipper, which pulls in some of the subtler colours. I've never sewn in a zipper, let alone an invisible one, so this is going to be an experience. Trepidatiously, this looks a lot like the original disappointing zipper, whereas I think I'm more suited to one of those heavy metal jobbies, but because I'm making it myself, I can always upgrade later. Conveniently, 45cm is about the length of 3 buta, so I folded over the excess after cutting my lengths and pinned it out of the way, not being prepared to commit to a complete cut. I procrastinated further by playing around with where I wanted the lace to go for optimal integrity and admiring my ingenuity. Sadly, a point to the contrary, I think the lace I got was also polyester. I was also extremely excited to take a leaf from another Anthropologie skirt's design and add in multiple lace segments. So pretty, so nouveau. I then pulled my finger out a bit and pinned the edges together to hold the fabric while I sewed the seams. You can see like a pro, I'm preparing to sew inside out. Never sure how many pins to put in though. Of course, with all these sharp objects floating around, I had to regularly transmit warning messages to Francis, such as "Don't sit there!" Upon actually sewing the first side, I started by practicing my back stitch because that's apparently the hand equivalent of a basic sewing machine stitch. I left a couple of gaps for the lace cutouts but forgot about the pockets because I was stressed. Next, onto the second side. My original vision was to have the black lace at the bottom and 2 cutouts for lace on either side of the middle buta. I don't know what I'm doing though, and as another delaying tactic, I compared against the original skirt and realised that the one on the top would interfere with the ruching. I then had concerns about where the lace would cut off with regards to my bohookie, Scottish for bum, therefore amended my plans so the white lace would go with the thicker white liners currently, comfortably in bottom of the skirt territory. I then made the cut. This was terrifying. The white section isn't as even as it looks either, so I had to be careful not to trim any heads off. As a comfort break, I pinned the black lace on again. You'll see a bit of a pattern here. We had access to an ironing board, which hilariously I thought would be helpful for a while. Then I realised pinning it on properly was more appropriate. To avoid Fraygate 24, I slip stitched, I think, the edges, which I cut as a preliminary action before hiding the frayed edge altogether. There was not a lot of room to work with here, and I'm quite impressed with how this is coming along so far. I'm also pleased with how well finishing the bottom came along, as in part 1 of folding the raw hem, which will eventually go onto the black lace. Jumping back to the terrifiedly cut white edge, in order to finish the hem I hid my stitches within the pattern. You can just about see the teeny tiny sliver of thread hidden in the middle of the flowery thing there. This was an absolutely genius move, apart from the fact that it took forever. However, it's quite pleasing on a textural level when you've run your fingers along it. You can see the stitches doing a decent job of pinning the excess fabric down and again hiding the risk that is the raw edge. I cannot emphasise enough that I did this in every single flower along a 2-metre odd length of fabric. There are so many freaking flowers! I could have chosen to skip every other or something, but the whole point of this project was to be both therapeutic and save money. Oh, change of scene, and a slightly risque shot of my legs. Don't worry, I do have shorts on. I only have sporadic footage of what happened next because due to a combination of a timetable mishap and the fact that our tailor wasn't open when they were due to be, I didn't have my lace dress available for a trip to the Flower City. More lace comfort pinning, but this time because I'm about to properly start sewing it on. Partly upset and partly because sometimes I need motivating to go on with these things, I decided that I wanted to be able to wear my skirt instead of the lace dress. This led to rushing through the project over the course of an 8-hour coach journey and into the night. Well into the night. By the time this was shot, with finished edges and both sides of the skirt tacked onto the white lace, we had pulled an all-nighter. It was 5 AM. I roughly attached the elastic and rolled the excess fabric to secure it. It's not finished, too short, missing an underskirt, my fingers were swollen, but it lasted a whole day with no casualties and looked beautiful. I'm so happy with what I've been able to achieve by hand sewing this. Here's some footage of me sewing on the bust, sped up to about 130%. I'll tell you more about the bust another time because that was an experience in itself. The fact that the skirt held together is seriously bringing up my confidence in my hand sewing. That sounds silly because for millennia people didn't have sewing machines but still managed. I was so scared that the edges wouldn't line up or I'd use the wrong stitch or it would just fall apart that this was in no way soothing. I also cannot get my head around just correcting a mistake, cutting out stitches or the like. It's something pathological. I didn't have to, but I don't like the thought of going back and undoing something. Yeah, I do that with computers all the time. It's also motivation to try to get to grips with my sewing machine because of how long this took. I have 2 machines at home which I've never succeeded at getting up and running. One is an electric one, and because I was scared of that, I bought a vintage hand crank Victorian one off Gumtree for £10, and guess what? Couldn't get that up and running either. This whole experience is making me excited about purposefully planning my wardrobes and thinking about what I want to wear and why. While I'm not too bad at buying excess clothing anyway, if I have to make it, I'll be even more ruthless. The point of this project was twofold, something I whittled away at while winding down sleep, which didn't work by the way. I either got hyped up because I had no idea what I was doing, or I was so intent on finishing a section that I just wanted to keep going. Relaxing is not my strong point, as well as saving me £30, which was the rough quote I got from various local tailors in HCMC. To be clear, that is not an extortionate rate, but it still felt like a lot to pay for a skirt when I could buy a finished one for less than that. No, it wouldn't have been tailored to my exact specifications, but I'm a control freak and currently have time to do this sort of thing myself and avoid ethical issues such as fast fashion and underpaid labour. HCMC isn't the tailoring capital of Vietnam, by the way. That title goes to Hoi An near Hanoi, but as you see from the footage of Tan Dinh Market, there's not a shortage here if you're interested in that sort of thing. Phew, that was a journey. Please hit that like and subscribe button to help the algorithm show me a bit of love. Would you consider hand sewing or at least designing your seasonal wardrobe? How about going all the way to Vietnam to get something tailored? See you next week for more spaghetti, i.e. random content that I like making to work out what you like seeing. I hope you have an amazing week and see you next time. Bye!